Okay, we are in chapter 5, section 8, and you have that St. James heading, and then you write chapter 5, section 8, underlined in red, and then percent of change underneath that, also underlined in red. Okay, so percent of change. Percent of change means we're going to take something and maybe you get percent off, you get a discount, or maybe it's marked up and you have to you increase the amount because maybe someone needs to make money off it, so it's actually more expensive than it would cost to make something. So there's a percent of change there. So the percent that an amount changes from its original amount is called the percent of change. Okay, so that means it's things like, okay, an increase or a decrease of something. So, for example, let's say the original amount was 80 water bottles. So you have 80 water bottles. Okay. And then the new amount is 55 water bottles. Okay. Well, first, would this be an increase or a decrease of water bottles? The original was 80 and now we're at the new amount is now 55. So is that an increase to go from here to here or a decrease? Well, first, it's an increase. Okay. So we know it's an increase. I'm sorry, decrease. No, it's definitely a decrease. Sorry. A decrease. Okay. So we are at a decrease. Now let's find out what that percent of change is. And we're always going to round to the nearest tenth. Always going to do that. Okay. So here's how this works. You still have your is over your of equals your percent over 100. Okay, that formula is coming back. We're going to use that a lot. I said we're going to use a lot. Here it is. Okay. Now, your of is always going to be the original amount. Of is your original amount, your starting amount. Okay, it starts at 80 water bottles. Now, the is, you actually subtract and you get the difference. The is will be the difference between the old and the new. Okay, between old and new. Okay, all right. So the difference is what? Well, 80 minus 55, okay? And you get what? 80 minus 55, and you get 25. So you want 25 in the is spot. You want the difference. And that equals your percent, which we're looking for, over 100. That's what I'm looking for. So the tricky part is figuring out this is. Okay? So we have 25 times 100 equals 80 times x. Okay. 25 times 100 is 2500 equals 80x. We got to get 80 over here, so we divide by 80. So 2500 divided by 80, and you get the percent to be 31.25. Don't forget your percent sign. Now, I said round to the nearest tenth, so I did not do that. Let's fix that. So I'm not going to box it because that's not right. It is, the tenth place is 31.3%. You have to round to the nearest tenth. Round to the nearest tenth place. So it's 31.3%. And we're finding the percent change, so there needs to be a percent sign. Don't forget the percent sign. Okay, let's do another one because I want to get comfortable with it. Okay, the original amount is 1.25 hours. So we're looking at hours. And now the new amount is 3 hours. Okay, here we go. 1.25 hours and then 3 hours. So let's look at this. The original amount was 1.25. Now the new amount is 3 hours. So going from here to here, is that an increase or a decrease? It's an increase. It's an increase. Okay, so let's see how much of an increase. Okay, we need to write is over of every time equals percent over 100. Okay, again, of is the original amount. And then is will be your difference between the two. Okay, difference means subtract. So of is 1.25 equals percent over 100. Okay, now we're subtracting. This is where people don't really know what they're doing. You're going to get lost. We have 3 hours. You subtract 1.25. And when you subtract, you line up your decimals. If you don't, you will get the wrong answer. Okay, and we get 1.75. That's the difference. That goes in the is spot. And again, if you're not paying attention, you're going to get lost. And of course, the x is in the x spot because we're looking for percent. Okay, so here we are. Cross multiply, and you get 1.75 times 100 equals 1.25 times x. And when you multiply by 100, you just move the decimal point over to the right 2 spaces. So it's 175 equals 1.25 x. You divide by 1.25, divide by 1.25, okay? And you get, what's 175 divided by 1.25? You get x equals 140. Okay, so how much of an increase? Let's see. 175 divided by 1.25 is 140%. And that's an increase, not decrease, sorry, an increase of 140%. Does that make sense? It actually does. And here's why. Because doubling this, if you have 1 hour and 25 minutes, and you double that, you get 2 hours and 50 minutes. That's a double. That's 100%. Well, we're even doing more than that because we have another half hour to add to get to 300 or to get to 3 hours. So that makes sense. It's about 140%. That makes sense. Okay, you always want to make sure that your answers make sense. Okay, it's really important that your answers make sense. So 140% does work. That does make sense. Okay, let's look at something else. Now let's look at markup and selling price. Okay, so we have the selling price and then sale price. So we're looking at finding the selling price, okay, of something. And that's what happens if you make a product, let's say you're in charge of, you invented something and you want to sell it. Well, you need to, establish how much it's going to cost you to make the product. And then you need a little cushion to make money and to feed your family and pay your employees and pay the insurance and all that other stuff. So you need to mark it up a little bit to make money so you can do those things. Okay, you can pay people to run your company, etc. So let's find the selling price and how much something's going to cost so you can make money. Okay, let's see what happens here. All right, if a computer costs $700, okay, you're getting a desktop computer at Best Buy, right? And it costs $700 to make. But for you to make money off of your computer, you need to sell it with a 30% markup. Markup means you need to sell it for more than $700 because you won't make any money. If $700 for that computer is literally how much it takes just to make, the parts, putting it all together, buying all the components, okay, but it doesn't give you any room to pay the employee or, like I said, pay the insurance. So you need to mark it up, okay? Well, how do we do that? How do I figure that price out then? You still use is over of equals percent over 100, okay? Well, now the percent obviously is the 30%, so that's easy, okay? The 700 is going to be your of, and you're looking for the is here. Okay, your markup amount is your is. Okay, so let's do that. Cross multiply, and you get 700 times 330, sorry, equals 100 times x. 700 times 30 is 21,000 equals 100 x. Okay, you divide by 100, divide by 100. Okay, and you get, the trick is you cancel out those zeros. So x equals 210. So the markup is $210. That is not your selling price. That's the markup. Here's the tricky part you want to pay attention to. That's the markup. Okay, so we're not done yet. We need to find the selling price. Well, the selling price then is you take the original price of $700 and you add the markup of 210. Okay, you add the markup of 210. Okay, and that gives you $910. That is your selling price. That's the selling price. So the markup just says how much money you're going to make off of selling a $700 computer. Okay, it's, when people say they work for commission, same idea. That's your commission. Okay, when you sell cars, the car salesman works off a commission. Okay, Best Buy employees work off commissions. All right, they get a percentage of every sale they make. That's a markup. Okay, let's look. That's the selling price. Now let's look at if we're doing a sale. Okay, find the sale price. Oops, I just added words together. Find the sale price, not selling price, but sale. Okay, so this means things are going to be at a discount. It's going to be cheaper. So instead of adding in a markup, you're going to subtract in a sale price. Okay, you're going to subtract because you're getting a discount. You're getting a deal. You're getting a sale. Okay, so let's do one for that. Okay, so what if I have a video game, okay, that originally the price was $75. Okay, the sale is 25% off. Okay, the sale is 25% off. So what is the sale price? Let's figure it out. Is over of equals percent over 100. Okay, again, your original amount is $75. That's in the of. Your percent is 25%. Over 100, you're looking for the is. Still looking for the is. So you have 75 times 25 equals 100 times x. So 75 times 25 is 1875 equals 100 x. Okay, you divide by 100, divide by 100, okay, and you get x to equal 18.75. So $18.75. Now, that is not, we're not done yet. That is the discount. When it says you get 25% off, that's the discount. Right there is $18.75. The sale price, remember we're looking for the sale price, is then you take the $75, that's how much the video cost. If you look, that's what we started out with, and you subtract your $18.75 because that's the discount. And don't forget, line up your decimals or you're going to get the wrong answer. Okay, so $75 subtract 1875, and you get the video game is $56.25. That's how much the sale price would be. Okay, so when it says find the sale price, you need to make sure you subtract that discount or you're going to get the wrong answer. Okay, not hard to do, you just have to pay attention. Okay, all right, so problem for next class. Okay, I'm going to give you, all right, a camera cost $245. All right, the markup is 10%. Okay, so what is the selling price? Okay, markup means you add that amount. So if you go back to our example up top, okay, markup here, I found the markup. Here's my markup, up, and look, I added. Mark up, you go up, you add. Okay, markup, you add. The sales price is off. Off means you subtract. See, when I have a sale and there's a sale price, I get 25% off. Off means I subtract. Okay, mark up, you add. So you're going to mark, whoa, you're going to add, once you find what 10% is, you're going to add that to the 245. See you next class.